job. So welcome everybody who is joining the webinar right now. We're just waiting for people to get settled in. I'm going to fix my hair because I always forget to do that before I get on here. I started using some sort of like coconut hair cream because I just hate getting my hair cut. And it's actually helping a little bit. It actually stays where it's supposed to be. So you were talking about you like to do some solo hiking. What's your favorite hiking place?
Oh, that's the hardest question of the day, man. It's I'll tell you, I really enjoyed Zion National Park. I'm a big national park guy. Really enjoyed
Yeah.
Zion National Park in Utah, and then one of my favorites that have been to with my son is Acadia up in Maine.
Oh, yeah.
Very diverse landscape, that you're just not used to.
Yeah. They have you explored much of Texas
I
since you've
have
been here?
not. I have not.
So, not far from you, not too terribly far, Stephenville, Dinosaur Valley. Yeah, McKinsey said Big Bend. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So Dinosaur Valley, there are dinosaur footprints in a riverbed there, and some fantastic trails. I think there's like 5 or 10 miles of trails. I'm not going to say the name of it because Megan Nelson, if she's on here, Megan's gonna give me a hard time. Paladero, yeah, I said it. I didn't mean to say it. Second largest canyon in the U.S., right in the Panhandle. Beautiful, beautiful place. And then Big
Popping
Bend,
up on my Instagram feed for here recently.
and it's not that far of a drive from you, from where you are. I mean, it's closer than where we are. It is a magical, magical place. And if you go, Megan will have to give us the details on this, but they do a outdoor theater in the fall, the summertime, I think. Pretty, pretty dang awesome. Wintertime there, it gets super cold, but it's beautiful, beautiful hiking. Fun fact, past President Jay Warren from Canyon, right there at the second largest canyon that will not be named. Big Bend, way, way, way out west. National and state park there. I'm actually going to Big Bend in November. Very excited for the annual Terlingua Chili Cook-Off. So we're going to be checking it out on motorcycles, though.
I heard that was an invitation, not
Yeah.
just you
Hey,
going.
anybody else wants to come down there? So I've seen this thing for years and years and years. It's the Tolbert Chili Cook-Off. So it started as these two reporters, one from New York and one from Texas, I think, who can make the best chili. And this is their 59th year running. It's chili con carne. It can have no vegetables appearing, no beans. It's all meat, seasoning, spices, broth, and like things like that. So I don't like to brag for those that know me, but I do have an award-winning chili recipe, and so I was very tempted to enter this year. And I haven't been. I've never been to Big Ben. I've never been to the cook-off. So I'm gonna go this year and just taste all the chilies, and then I'll see if I can compete.
Well, now everybody's hungry.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Man.
So October 30th, 31st, through like the November the 4th, anybody wants to come down to Big Bend, we're gonna be in Terlingua eating chili. But looks like we're getting settled. So keep the comments coming on great places to hike, because Dustin is gonna need those as a new Texan here. So welcome to September webinar. Excited to see everybody online. I'm Josh Lee. You've probably seen me before. I tend to do a lot of these webinars. I'll be your host today. Today, very, very excited for this conversation. We have Dustin Sternbeck, who's the Chief Communications Officer for the City of Denton. What we're going to be learning from him is his experience on January 6th, 2021, pretty notable date in American history, because he was in the U.S. Capitol during the insurrection and involved with the Metropolitan Police in D.C. as the chief communications officer. So, in an emergency response perspective, I certainly remember where I was on that day and remember thinking about, gosh, I wonder how it feels to be in the response to that. And we're so fortunate to have somebody who lived through such a traumatic event and is willing to share their experience with us. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about his experience, how it was that day, what he learned from it, and what we can take away from it as communications specialists or communications professionals in this industry. Because part of our job, whether we like it or not, is being able to effectively respond to emergencies. And the best way for us to learn is by doing. So, a couple quick housekeeping things before we kick it off over to Dustin. If you have questions, there's a Q&A feature in the webinar. Use that. Feel free to keep the comments going. I'll keep monitoring those over time. And then I'm going to drop a couple links. One to the new webinar page. There's an option on the new webinar page on the TAMIO site to submit webinar ideas. If you have those, we'd love to hear from you, as well as feedback on how we're doing and what you'd like to see. And then another link I'm going to drop, the submissions for call for presentations for the 2026 conference just opened yesterday. It's open through the end of October, but don't wait on submitting those. We want to get those in as early as possible. So get them submitted. And with that, Dustin, I'm going to kick it over to you. Let's learn about January 6th.
Thanks, Josh. Good morning to everybody. Yeah, as Josh Tito, I was serving as the Chief Communications Officer for the Metropolitan Police Department during the events of January 6th. It's kind of funny because as he was, doing the intro, he was like, yeah, he was there at the Capitol. Our city manager does that all the time when she goes out there. I'm like, well, wait, let's provide some context here. But really today's story and discussion is not just about the events of that day. I think it's also around the failures of what we as the comm staff did. We made some good decisions. We also made some wrong decisions, but we also recognized when we needed to pivot. I will also jump into kind of avoiding this cookie cutter approaches when it comes to comms, particularly in a large scale crisis event. And then really the most important thing was just change. We can't wait for the ideal conditions to make change as practitioners in this space. So that's really kind of the big overview. I'll give you a little of my background. I was born and raised in Alexandria, Virginia, which is right across the river from Washington, D.C. And all of our school field trips used to be into the city. And we spent a lot of time just going in and out of DC. I have not been back to Washington, DC since I relocated down here to Texas. And I don't know, it's kind of, it has a different feel and vibe to it now, even when I fly back and forth to Virginia. So
do you still have family in Virginia?
Yeah, so I've got 3 kids. My oldest, she's already out of college and back working in Northern Virginia. I have a middle child. She's a freshman at the University of South Carolina. Go Gamecocks. And then I've got a son he is in 5th grade. So I still commute back and forth. I did relocate down here by myself. So I've been.
Wait. Your 5th grader is in Virginia?
Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay.
He gets a lot of guilty dad gifts. Let's just say that.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Sorry, didn't mean to derail that, but that's amazing.
But you talked about kind of, we all remember certain events across history, like where you were, what you were doing. Yes, I knew exactly where it was on January 6th. That was one of them. But 9/11, I was in. My undergrad was at West Virginia University. So I went there and 9/11 happened. And then that really put me on this trajectory to go into public safety and public service. I actually was a fireman for a couple of years out of college because what 9/11 did, and I went to get my master's degree. And I've always was interested in comms. In the fire department that I was working for, they did not have a PIO, and really, this was early 2000s. The comms function in organizations, particularly in public safety or local gov, it just wasn't really a thing. That kind of was either like an HR function, at least on the East Coast. It was like an HR function. It was an afterthought. They really didn't have any true practitioners in those spaces. Like anybody can do this comms thing. Um,
It's funny
and
we
so
still get that reaction
that's
a lot of
true.
places.
It's true. And so the fire chief at the time, when I went to get my master's degree, was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And he's like, "Well, I'm going to bring you up, and you can work for me." And one of the roles was to set up the first PIO office team, and fell in love with it. And so what drove me into public service was 9/11, and what drove me really out of the public safety world was January 6th. And when I think about kind of those big moments in time,
So you were in public safety communications, I mean,
the,
for your whole career, basically.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. And primarily the DC region. I when I went to Washington D.C. for Metropolitan Police Department and served there. It was just under 10 years, and between myself and Don Aaron, who is the comms director in Nashville, Tennessee, it's really a short shelf life on these major city police agencies. From a comms perspective, you see typically anywhere from like 2 to 3 years. 5 years
Wow.
is a long time. I mean, it's
So
almost
you got to
like
be pretty psycho to do 10.
yeah. So I was one of those psychopaths, I guess.
So when you went to Metro PD, were you like, yeah, this is it? Like this is the, I mean, you had to be pretty stoked about that. That's a pretty big agency to be involved
Well,
with.
well, at the time I was working for Arlington County Police Department, so another, jurisdiction right across the river. I mean, you just didn't get the volume and the high profileness, and so the chief actually reached out to me from DC, Kathy Lanier at the time, and now she's the senior VP for the National Football League. But
Oh,
at the time,
wow.
she was the chief for the DC Police, and she said, "Hey, we want you to kind of tear this operation down in DC. We know we're not doing things right, but we don't know how to do it right, so we need somebody to come in
Hmm.
and do it. And we like what you're doing across the river, and we want you to kind of take the reins over here." And so they gave me the freedom and flexibility to build my team and really just make it what it is. And
Yeah, that's appealing.
I walked in the door with 5 people on the team, and ultimately, when I left, we had a little bit over 30.
Wow, that's pretty substantial growth even over a 10-year period.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just but the I think as we look at our own organizations, just and certainly for larger cities, like just the responsibilities
Yeah,
and everything that came down, like you can't get by. And I feel for people that have one person comm shops because that
yeah.
that is it's a lot. And
It's not sustainable.
no, not sustainable. So they had the I had the support going in there to build that team and make a number of hires and really structure a way that there was going to be some longevity there and some long-term success. And I'm fortunate for that because you don't get that in every stop. So
Sure.
yeah, it's
So, so I can't imagine that, I mean, going into that position, you had ever dreamed you would face an experience like January 6th. But did y'all train for things on that were that severe or that dramatic, or how well prepared do you think you were to respond to that event?
you're never really fully prepared to respond to an event of that magnitude and that size. I think we had a couple of active shooter, you know, incidents in the district leading up to it. So like, in terms of, you know, crisis situations, I mean, there's some commonalities there, and you
Sure.
certainly, it kind of stinks that you're always going through kind of this, significant events and you're having to do some of these things and talk about them. But,
Yeah.
it's like anything over time, you get better and better and better at it. And so, large scale events, I mean, we've held things outside of the crisis world, like, presidential inaugurations.
Planned events, right?
So you have the Washington Nationals and Capitals who won World Series and Stanley Cup. So, and we've got a First Amendment assemblies happening in the District of Columbia on a daily basis. So you're
I was
just,
gonna say, yeah,
it's just a constant presence of things outside of what your normal press conferences and news releases are. And so you get accustomed to the flexibility in the role, and that
yeah,
was really critical when it comes, time for, these significant events, because there's no playbook or no, crisis communications protocol. Yeah, you have some of
yeah,
your staple and foundational elements, but, in the moment of something that is like an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, you have to have the flexibility. You're gonna have to
sure,
put you're gonna have to put people who are traditionally like your community outreach, staff into different roles, just because
yeah.
you're not equipped to handle something of that magnitude. So, that's certainly
Well,
the case there.
and we down here, I mean, we take our training, very seriously, and I fundamentally believe, training helps shore up a lot of the things that become muscle memory. How to structure a JIC and how to write a press release and how to respond to media and things like that. But to your point, in every activation, there are a set of unknown variables that you absolutely cannot account for in theory and in practice, that only present themselves in real world experience. In that adaptability piece, not getting locked up in a moment and being able to say, well, this is new. How do we fix it, or how do we solve for it? Is crucial, and only makes us more effective, I think, for the next one, if we can push through it and if we can learn from it.
I think we were fortunate on that day because we didn't know an insurrection was going to happen, but we knew there was going to be extremely large crowds in the district. I mean, through open source information and intel, whether it was, chatter on social media and or, maintaining regular communications with our hotel industries, not only in the district but in Maryland and Virginia, they had full occupancy. So we said, okay, there's going to be a large crowd here.
Yeah,
We were able to stand up a press briefing room in advance. We had the JIC in place. We had our Emergency Operations Center. And then we also have in the district what we call a Joint Operations Command Center. So it just
yeah,
brought, all the players in the room. So we already had those kind of elements in place before the day even started, and
yeah,
it helped. Um,
sure.
you
So
know,
you're as prepared as you could be. I mean,
Yep. And there was still COVID was still a thing, at the time. I had
oh,
I had I had like 10 of my staff members who were out that day. So we split the groups up. Myself and my number two, her and I stay through the duration of these events, whether it's,
hmm,
inaugurations, activations, large scale events. We're in it for the long haul. Then I just split the team in half. You have a morning and evening shift just to help with the fatigue and, the well-being and all that stuff, because not only do you have to prepare for, events during that day and moment, but subsequent days. So
yeah,
they're like, hey, there's going to be press activations or press conferences and updates that are going to be on our heels come like January 7th or the next day. So we need to be back in the office. And, after a full day or full activation, those that you're tired. And
right.
so,
And there's no backup for it. I
no,
mean,
you
yeah,
can't go home and go right to sleep either. You go home and you shower, you can't get to bed, you're spun up, and then you got to be right
yeah.
back at it. You know,
That takes a special mental
all of us, but
capacity.
we all know how that is. I mean, we're
Sure,
in comp
sure.
the adjustment. So, um, little background on DC, and then I'll share a video, and then we get into kind of like communications elements here. Is the district's police department is the primary law enforcement agency in the city. Um, we also have upwards of 70 additional law enforcement agencies that are protecting federal assets. If you think
All
about it,
separate agencies, technically
all,
speaking.
all separate agencies, but
Good
DC
Lord.
Police would, and those terms are interchangeable. Metropolitan Police Department, DC Police are interchangeable. So DC
Okay.
is police is the primary law enforcement agency that is going to be investigating any sort of serious crimes. But you think about it, you got like FBI police, CIA has their own police department, the Treasury Department does,
Secret
uh,
Service.
Secret Service, which was another big player on the anytime you have a presidential movement here. So really, kind of, you had three main players that day in terms of the law enforcement circles, and that is the United States Capitol Police, United States Park Police, and then the Metropolitan Police Department. So those were kind of the three primary players the day of January 6th. But yes, you have a lot of different MOUs, and you know you have to play nice with all these different law enforcement agencies who have very different communities that they serve,
Yeah.
and very different rules of engagement and very different approaches to communications. We all kind of always just took the lead at DC Police, and they relied on us because majority of the time our federal agencies didn't have the luxury of being able to go out and do press conferences, or it would be days later or weeks later just because
Did
of
they
the
have did they have representatives in your JIC, or you just have good
they did.
relationships with them? Okay.
Yeah, they did.
Yep.
But not from a communication standpoint. Their
Right.
representatives are more from operations. Um,
I see.
so
Yeah.
we have about a 4,500 person agency. About close to 4,000 were sworn, and then an additional 500 civilian members. The
Yeah.
district,
Professional.
the district is relatively small in terms of population. It's about 700,000. I'm sure that number has grown a little bit, but like daytime population swells to over 1 million, just given all the job from federal government.
Yeah.
And then going back to kind of 2020, if you look around the country, George Floyd riots are starting sometime around May and June, pretty steady in our large cities. And that was definitely the case down in DC. We had ongoing protests and riots and First Amendment assemblies. And back up, I mean, we typically in Washington would handle about 1,300 First Amendment assemblies or protests a year, just to give you a sense of kind of, there
Yeah.
was multiple every day. Um, we would have our officer involved shooting incidents. We had a growing crime rate at the time. We were inching our way to about 300 homicides in the city for that year.
God dang.
We had over 1,300 shootings and close to 3,500 robberies and carjacking. So crisis is sort of like our baseline.
Yeah.
We're always in that crisis mode. The staff that I had, we did about 200 to 300 news releases a month.
Whoa. A month?
A month. Um,
That's a lot.
Everybody really paid attention to this DC news
Yeah. Yeah.
releases.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
had such fatigue from us, but and we had daily press briefings, so it's just
Yeah. Because you always got something to talk about, right?
always something to talk about. The news always wants to speak to the police, and we were kind of easy because we were down the street from everybody. So we would have a morning press conference from overnight stuff. We'd have any breaking news press conferences from an incident or event, and then we'd have our evening rush so we could hit the evening news crew. So it was
News cycle. Yeah. Pretty
just kind
standard.
of, but that
We we had I've talked about this a lot in my experience. So around the same time, so George Floyd is entombed in Pearland, it almost in the shadow of our police station. And when we got word of that, about that being a possibility, that my first reaction was like, Pearland? Like we're it's this is it still feels like a small town to me, but I mean we do have large cemeteries that I mean a lot of people in Houston uh have been buried in and or entombed and in that response, the day of the event, we had, I mean, 700 law enforcement officers, National Guard, BORTAC team, state troopers, our local PD, SWAT teams, and we had been training, in communications. We set up a full EOC and had a JIC with representatives from all over. And I think the thing we knew our primary goal was a safe event for the people that were attending and for our community. That's it. That's all we were trying to do. But early on in the day, one of the somebody from operations came over and said, "Hey, I need you to give me headshots of any of your team that's going to be in the field today." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Why do you need that?" So the Overwatch teams don't accidentally shoot them if they have to engage. And I was like, "Oh, like it wasn't real until that point. You know what I mean?" And we now I know, and I mean it helps me professionally speaking, but just the things that catch you by surprise, it's like, oh, this is for real. And so, that's we're just a suburb. I can't imagine the stress level that y'all experience on a daily basis, but um, it probably ratchets up real quick.
Sure. And that day, I mean, our initial messaging during that day and any large scale events, if you think about it in your communities, is typically
Yeah,
focused in like more transportation related.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
hey, avoid the downtown area, or you might want to, not want to drive your car in here. Maybe you take, our metro, which is the subway,
mhm,
or seek alternative Uber, whatever you need to do. But like traffic's gonna be a pain. So like
yeah.
a lot of our messaging leading up to this was about, traffic awareness and letting the apartments and businesses know that, there'd be a large crowd and to seek,
Yeah,
different
because you still got to mitigate that risk.
ways. Yeah. um,
Okay, so talk us through the events that day. I know you have a video that sort of outlines the whole thing. I saw this video, so anybody that was at 3CMA that attended this conference got to see it. But I really like it. Whoever edited and put it together did a fantastic job because man, it really drops you right in the moment. But do you want to go ahead and go through that and kind of talk through some of those
Sure, sure. And I'll just
events?
before I play the video, I'll let you all know that like as a chief executive, our chief was on day 4 of his position on January 6th. So we he had not done a press conference before, like they were very sparingly, but so now I'm working with a chief executive on the day of maybe one of the biggest events in US history, at least in
That's
recent
4 days
memory,
into his job.
4 days into his job. And so, like, as you're writing talking points and trying to speak through like what a press conference is and when to take questions and maybe not take questions, uh, there's that also going on.
Yeah.
Let me get this. All right, let's see.
Hey, look, it's me.
Is it
Oh,
you?
yeah, no, you're good. You're good. Keep going.
All right, let's
There you
go.
go.
Audio good?
Um, not yet.
Hmm?
Not yet. Hang on. Try sharing it again. We
Let's
tested
see.
this before and it worked. Have you tried restarting it? I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
We have been following the fallout
Okay, yeah, there you go.
from the darkest days in American history.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn in the past few hours.
Hearing these reports that there's tear gas being used in the rotunda, as Brett has just reported, the members are being told to get those gas masks that are under their seats.
We have seen people be detained, seemingly
Okay,
arrested.
now we're hearing it, but we
We've
can't
seen at
see the
least one
video.
person who appears to have fairly serious injuries enough to be taken away and blood left here on the ground where people have pushed past this barricade. You can hear them getting louder cheering as more people make their way to this area.
Hey, Dustin. We can hear it, but we can't see it now.
We'll describe it. We'll describe. So we can go through the. I mean, everybody pretty much has a sense of what it was like, and maybe we should have
Yeah.
tested it more than 5 minutes before we jumped on here, but all good. So,
Do you want to share the timeline that you have in that presentation? You can just talk through that.
Yeah, so I mean, you want me to pull that up as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it too. And then if there's a way to share the video after, we can do that too. So things didn't kick off for you until, I mean, from an emergency response perspective, until the pipe bomb came in, right? Or what was happening before, like leading up to that?
Yeah, kind of just normal business. I mean, we're checking in with the JIC and we're bouncing around between the Emergency Operations Center. I'm pretty much attached to the hip to our chief. The mayor is there from the city. Somewhere just before noon, the biggest concern from the mayor at the time when people were parking on the grass along the National Mall, we didn't want people to screw up our grass, you know.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
And so she's like, I need pictures of all these cars parked. And I was like, I'm going to volunteer. I'll take my unmarked cruiser. I'll drive down there and I'll take pictures and send them back. Because, being inside of a JIC all day or any kind of EOC is
Yeah, you want to
dark.
get out.
I get outside. So
Yeah.
I grabbed one of my staff members. We went down, very large crowd trying to navigate our way through a downtown area. But the chief at the time, it was probably just before that first pipe bomb was found, called me. He was like, I need you back at the U.S. Capitol. I mean, this crowd is growing. I mean, it's getting tens of thousands of people. So I headed back that way. And then that first pipe bomb is found at RNC headquarters, which is in close proximity to the Capitol. And so at 12:45, it starts a chain reaction of events. We're getting calls from around, not just local DC, but around the country of, hey, we're getting reports of a pipe bomb found at RNC headquarters. Like, can you confirm this information? We're working with our U.S. Capitol Police partners at the time. We have to verify like what we have. So at that point, we're chasing down information with our special ops commander on the ground to figure out what we have. I mean, certainly our bomb squad is en route and investigating. Within 13 minutes, that changed because that's when that crowd size had gotten super large in front of the Capitol grounds. And their police department requests our police department to come over there and assist because we can't go on their grounds unless they ask us or basically request us. And at that point, the barricades had been breached. And
Oh, wow.
so we
And
have
is there a
crowds.
standing protocol? Like, so, I mean, they obviously weren't prepared for a response like that either, but I mean, they're estimating based on the size of the crowd, they aren't going to be able to handle this, and that's when they call for help.
Yeah. So I mean, they had like the bicycle racks out in front as their barricade at the time. And you got to think, I mean, we're preparing for a presidential inauguration in a couple of weeks. So all the scaffolding from the presidential inauguration platform build out is in the front. And so people start climbing that. They're disassembling that to take some of those metal pipes. And then, so we've got a pipe bomb 12:45. We got the breach of the barricade around just before 1 o'clock, and then a second pipe bomb hits at 1:15, and that's at DNC headquarters. It is chaotic around our office. I mean, I can tell you, we actually had to silence our phones in the office and come up with just a scripted voicemail that we would put up there, directing everybody to our social media platforms. At that time,
the call volume was uncontrollable already.
Thousands of calls. I mean,
Golly.
we've got we've got global press now calling. My cell phone is nonstop ringing. You can't keep up at the time. The office lines are going. Our staff, it's chaos. And I'm down at our emergency operations center with the chief. And of course, like some of the staff are back in the office, manning the phone lines, some are in this JIC area. So, and it's not all centrally located. So I'm literally running up and down the hallway of police headquarters, trying to check in with everybody. We silenced the phones. We came up with a voicemail we put up. We stopped answering the phones, directed people to our Twitter at the time, and said that if any information was going to release, this was the official channel, and then we'll provide more information about a forthcoming press conference. So,
and then you focused specifically on the Twitter channel as your communication mechanism. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, this is where when I first started this conversation, we talked about failures.
Mm.
The sheer volume of calls, everything we were focused on was the external audience, because it was
Yeah.
just like everything's in your face and you're like, and so everything we were doing at the time was about the external audience. We had to pivot in that moment because we not forgot, but we did not prioritize the internal audience and the
Uh,
district residents. So
because your police officers, you have 4,000 police officers, they might not have a clue what's going on.
they're watching social media.
Yeah.
They're tuned into, platforms. We had a real problem with the officers who were off duty and started self-deploying into the city and going to the capital to help. And there's no accountability there. We didn't know. They were kind of just freelancing on the
Yeah.
grounds of tens of thousands of people.
Which they want to do good. They want to help, but you need
Sure, but
structure to it.
you need structure, but they also weren't equipped with body worn cameras, which every officer needed to have body worn cameras.
Oh,
So in terms of legal liability and kind of what you had to deal with down the road, that was an important piece that, that was missing. And so it fed into a lot of conspiracy theories, and it really was they were trying to do good and help their department, and they were self-deploying. So we set up, we had a green screen in headquarters, and we started doing 2-hour incremental chiefs messages to the force. It was something that we then started doing. We had push notifications out. Every member of our department had department issued cell phones or MDTs, the modem, the computers they would put in their cruisers. So
and you have a platform where you can just push messages to that.
yeah, and we use that to message to the force, and then in the moment we also had to communicate to the District of Columbia residents. We're still having the normal crime. People are still dialing 911 expecting police to show up to handle their shootings or stolen property reports. And so then we
Golly.
did it in the moment to tell them, okay, like everything is happening despite what's happened at the U.S. Capitol. We can still answer the call and answer your 911 calls. Like you're still an important stakeholder.
And how did you use like WIA or like an iPause push notification for that, or how'd you handle that one?
I mean, we had a very solid base, and I used a lot of our community outreach folks, but we had in terms of we had a press release and the neighborhood listservs, and then we had a large following list.
Yeah.
We sent those out that way. We didn't use the WIA until one of the most effective ways that we were able to kind of mitigate the crowd or just use for crowd control was a curfew. And so that was one of the main tools that we used and things we spoke about at that 4:30 press conference. So, that's when we had that first press conference, and it was really to say that a curfew was put into place at 6 p.m. And we needed folks we needed compliance. And that was the most effective way that we were able to handle like the riot crowds during post George Floyd. And so we put a curfew in effect. We utilized the WIA, and then we were able to effectively manage the crowd size. Our goal all along was to get Congress back into session so that they could continue counting electoral ballots and votes.
And was the Capitol Police the one driving that initiative, or
no? It was all us.
Yeah, okay.
It was all MPD. So you think about 1 o'clock. It took us about 5.5 hours there to fully secure the U.S. Capitol, get Congress back into session at 8 p.m. And to be able to then hold a second press conference at 10:30.
What time did y'all start that day?
I usually start on something like that. We get there about 7 or 8 a.m.
So you're already 14 hours in by your second press conference.
It's not as bad as like the presidential inaugurations. When you have those, your day starts at about 1 or 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And the number of just different security checks that you have to go through. The line can get pretty long. Even for, I mean, you just think about the number of law enforcement that need to come through those security checkpoints.
Yeah.
And you have to do full car sweeps, etc. Like you have to go through multiple to get into the inner perimeter. So that line can get, so usually, you know, presidential inauguration starts at 2 a.m. and runs until 2 a.m. the next day, and you're wiped. But, you know, as we look at January 6th, you know, thinking about it through a communication standpoint, like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, like, what are you picking and choosing? I mean, we had a young lady who was fatally shot inside the Capitol. We've got this curfew. We've got the biggest story on hand, and
the pipe bombs, which took a back seat.
Bombs. So we're dealing with a lot of priority things. I think, you know, that evening 10:30 press conference, we're speaking a little bit more about those things and not just the curfew.
Yeah, because you have more information, more bandwidth.
You know,
curfew's already in effect.
Yep. We've got officers who have been sent to the hospital. I mean, they were in a 5.5 hour long fight. I mean, we had close to 60 officers that had anything from lacerations because they were hit upside the head with something, all the way up to, you know, one of our guys was pulled out into the crowd and tased repeatedly over and over, and it ended up having 6 heart attacks. So, you know, so the level of injuries is just racking up. I mean, we're recovering firearms, we're making arrests. You know, we've got, you know, civilian that lost their lives. We've got a lot on our hands.
So your new chief, obviously you did training with him, you know, walking into those press conferences, whatever you could. How did those conversations go? What was that like? I presume you did those with him.
Yeah, so I originally started out behind a computer screen, and I'm like typing out talking points and like script, and finally, just because it would change by the second, by the minute, like you just, you know, write it, erase it, write it, erase it. Like, I just took some like white paper and started using a Sharpie and doing like 3 to 5 high level bullet points. And even then, those would change. You crumble up, shoot it into the trash can over there. And so, you know, and he actually, through the course of his chief career there, was very effective in just giving him like 3 to 5 main points and let him just spitfire.
Yeah.
He did not do really well when everything was scripted. That was a change in kind of the previous administration that I worked on. They wanted everything scripted. He just wanted to kind of know what are some of the areas I need to talk about. Let me just roll. And so we did that. We selected him and the mayor. They're the only ones that were going to talk that evening, January 6th. And then we had one additional press conference, which would be on January 7th, kind of picking up the pieces. You know, this is the largest law enforcement investigation, joint investigation with the FBI, because it's going to be national, on our hands. And it was going to be a months-long exercise. But and we had to correct a number of, you talk about misinformation. I mean, we could solely get into kind of the misinformation that is still to this day kind of present about January 6th. And so, like, how do we address all of that at once? And so we had 3 press conferences, 2 on January 6th, 1 on January 7th, and then we stopped talking to the press. And then from there, you got to think about it.
What drove that decision? You think that just having those 3 conferences, it satisfied everything that, I mean, objective wise, that y'all needed to talk about?
We just didn't have any additional updates at the time. You know, like we would go back out and be saying the same thing over and over, and like, like we can't get into that right now. It's an active investigation. We didn't want to do that. But in that moment, as we all know, I mean, law enforcement across the country it was like gut punch after gut punch, and in that moment, we were like, this is really an opportunity for us to swing the pendulum back in the favor of just public safety service members. And at the time, I knew our guy had been tased and suffered all those heart attacks. There was another video that was circulating about like a smash. One of our officers was being smashed in the doorway at really one of the range points of the Capitol, and he was getting crushed. And then we had a female officer who was the front line of our civil disturbance unit, and I was friends with her. So, and she was had done press stuff before. He's great on camera. So I really pled with our mayor and chief to do additional press afterwards, and it was just to tell the story from the viewpoint of a police officer and what they went through.
Yeah. Well,
And so-
and with the attitude, I mean, the observation that we've seen across the country relative to law enforcement, and then that experience, it's a really smart move, potentially risky, but I think really
It was
smart.
risky, and I know you saw the video because one of the guy who I talked about, had been tased over and over. Mike, he's got neck tattoos and everything. He's never done press before, and he will drop the F-bomb every other sentence or word. And I promise you, like, even on national news, he's dropping the MF or it, and it's just, you're kind of hesitant on doing that. But I think the country needed to hear that at the time. And it was raw, it's emotional, but it was
Genuine.
very authentic. And that resonated with a lot of households across the country.
Yeah.
And,
well, and he became sort of, I mean, he's sort of one of the faces of that movement now. I mean, he's been everywhere, it seems like.
Yeah, CNN signed him. He went on and kind of had a deal with CNN for the better part of 2 years, just kind of speaking about his experience and advocating on behalf of, law enforcement and just the investigative piece of it. So, but, I know we're running up on time here, and I want to save some time for questions, but also, like, some of the lessons, like, we were able to cross-train staff beforehand so that we were putting community outreach into social media monitoring or developing messaging. And we had a lot of canned stuff already, but also don't forget about your internal stakeholders in like your community residents in the time of maybe in a national or a global story. And then something that really helped the comms team out and me out, because an after action is coming, particularly on this. And I used one of our sworn members to serve as basically my scribe. I said, don't leave my side through the duration of this event. I need you to track every decision that is made, put a timestamp on it, and really build out a detailed timeline, in the moment.
You're going to need that. Yeah. Yeah.
And I used
you're
that.
going to forget a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah, that thing was very helpful in development of that after action, in terms of helping us kind of, because you can go back and be like, I think I did this, and like some of those details get blurred. But yeah, it's I also don't want to gloss over the fact that probably one of the most difficult moments of my career, in a leadership position, is speaking to the staff after this occurred. I mean, you got to think about, we have been working out, like, long hours leading up to this thing. I co-chaired the presidential inauguration committee,
which is
we've got this thing coming in a couple of weeks. And the emotions that have gone through your staff members, like, taking a minute, like, what do you tell people after you go through like something like that? I mean, we at 3CMA, we heard the young lady from somewhere outside of Asheville, North Carolina, one of the counties there, and like, it's just a lot. And so, like, it's not lost on me kind of the what your staff goes through, even just normal day-to-day business and marketing and communications on what we deal with. I mean, we're typically the receivers of a lot of frustrated community members. We're always involved in kind of the chaos of the organization. And so, like, that stuff is building on your staff. And then when you go through something like this, and particularly after working in law enforcement for a while, it's just like, what do you say? You certainly don't want to be like, hey, we're having a pizza party as a token of appreciation. Like, so.
And you don't have the luxury of having a lot of downtime or decompression time.
And so, like, as we started this conversation, one of the things that I kind of got into was going on solo hiking trips, because I just had to get away from it all and just clear your head. And so that was my kind of thing that I did. And, I still will do it from time to time just to get out and clear your mind in this space. but yeah, certainly led me to the state of Texas. At that moment, after January 6th, I held on until 2023. I still feel guilty that I got a lot left because there's never an end to what you need to be that needs to be accomplished there. But I really got a cool opportunity to come down here and get outside of the public safety umbrella. I still oversee kind of our police, emergency management, and fire comms functions, but to take an opportunity to come down here to Denton, Texas, build out a team again, really right size what we were doing here and work on some projects outside of public safety. We've got a fantastic team down here. We are a Halloween destination where we celebrate Halloween for 31 days, and that's what we've been ramping up towards. But there is
not quite the same as an insurrection response.
But there's a number of things that need to happen, with solid waste and recycling and the budget process. Like, there's never a shortage of communications responsibilities, and so just
those things are important. Yeah,
and it is, and it's a change. And I see the comment there. It is a large change of pace. It took me a while to kind of get adjusted because I would handle all of the overnight stuff every day of the calendar year in the district. So my sleep was messed up. Like, you start recognizing you're a little bit more of a jerk to the people in your personal lives. But it's also like
self-awareness is important when it comes to
self-awareness is very important. And I've got Kayla Harrod here with me, and I know you're familiar with her. I don't even know if she's on this call, but she likes to keep me in check all the time as well. And I rely on her. Like, the value of our comms network should never be underappreciated because we are 100%. Always, all of us are going through something, a challenge, whether it's with the organization or just a fatigue factor. And, so I rely on the network down here. And yes, I don't have as large of a network here down in Texas because, I've spent my whole career and like my family and everybody's back on the East Coast. But I found some really good people down here. I think I have. I won't tell Kayla too frequently because I don't like her head swelling. But you get your people. We rely on each other, and I'm certainly love my time here. I think it was a much needed change. I do miss working in like kind of the public safety and like kind of dynamic nature of being in that space, but like, there's not a shortage of work. So like, I'm always a resource for anybody across the state here. If there's a challenge that you're working on, particularly in the space of like crisis comms, please use me as a resource, maybe get some insight. I might not be much help. I might be able to talk through a situation, but I am definitely a resource and available should you ever want it.
We appreciate that. And I was going to say, I think that, having that network, having, your close cadre, TAMIO members, people you go through PIO training with, find those people for sure. Because, they're there for you. And I mean, personally speaking, from a TAMIO perspective, it's one of the things that I love about this organization is how dedicated we are, one, to our industry, but also to each other. And we recognize we don't have the luxury, to your point, Dustin, of a lot of downtime. And there's something wrong with all of us that we choose this and show up every day. But we can celebrate that together and take care of one another. So we appreciate you, appreciate the work you did up there, appreciate the talent you bring down here for sure. Real quick, couple of questions. So Lee asked, she said to you, thank you for your what you did up there. Her first question was, so we have 3 years to go in this presidency. Do you know how people in communications up there are training now in anticipation for something like this happening in the future? Like, how has this reshaped communications up there?
It reshaped it from January 6, 2021. And like, from that moment up there, like, it changed a lot of things, not just comms, but like, to your point, I mean, we can, we would have tabletop exercises. We would do these teams check-ins, but I think we saw an opportunity to make them even bigger and more realistic.
And more
know,
dramatic, like more outlandish, so you can.
yeah, yeah. I think it forced the hands of our federal partners up there to be more actively engaged and more involved in the comm space. They couldn't just rely on the local law enforcement down there to, just kind of take the brunt of all
Step in.
the
Yeah.
responsibility. Um, you know, so we do all that stuff, but it was on a more regular basis. We carved out a lot of time. We started hosting in DC. We started hosting regional, like it started out as monthly kind of comms workshops. We would bring in members of the media and the press. We started with the
Yeah.
local press, and then we expanded it to our law enforcement liaisons at the national desk to come in and just ask questions to understand kind of the processes and like behind the scenes stuff. So like game day or anything like large scale like this, we could kind of avoid a lot of those questions, and they had a general sense of what needed to occur. So just kind of more awareness and education with our press members. I mean, there's so much turnover in the press. At least what we're seeing across the country is you're getting a lot of younger news reporters that are also operating the camera. They're kind of they have to do it all. They have to shoot, they edit, they do the on camera, and they don't have really a good understanding of government operations.
Right.
And
You
so
need to
there's
spoon feed them.
huge learning curve. So we started, having these active workshops for them.
Got it. Jennifer asked, so former TV producer, so how do you give folks like the officers who may not have media training a crash course to get them prepared for press conferences or like the news story you did? What'd you do for your officers?
We just had a conversation. I didn't want it to be too scripted. I mean, like the executive staff members or me, like in a suit, like we're on TV, like there's a cadence to what we do. But with those three officers that we chose to kind of be the face and the storytellers post event, I didn't want to coach them up too much. I think if
you
we
want them
would
to
have
be
done
natural.
that, and if and you heard it in there when he was like, "Thank you, but F you for being here." Like as he was telling us that, I just kind of stopped and was like, "I don't want you to change a thing. You can tell that to America. You can tell that to a global audience because that resonates." And I think we didn't want to coach him up too much. But I don't know if I would go with that approach on a day-to-day basis if we're just like talking about like a homicide or something like that. I think those are very different situations.
I think you have to look at what your desired outcome is, personally speaking, and then set your expectations based on that. Because I've done that. Like I've had people that I'm like, they need to get camera time, and then I put them on there, and I'm like, that was a bad choice. I shouldn't have done that. And then it's the only time I do it. But I think that, I mean, even just the conversation beforehand is helpful. And then last one, Lee asked again, have you ever thought about, or did you at the time think about wearing a body worn camera to keep track of everything?
Oh, I didn't really think about it. We had talked about it before in terms of like using it for like when I talked about the scribe moments and going through that. But our BWC, the legislation in the district and the ordinances around kind of BWC footage and what was available. I don't know if we wanted to give people
that much access
because the law in the district was any sort of footage, whether it's a critical event or a significant, moment. Like we had 5 days to produce body worn footage.
Oh, goodness gracious.
And our team handled all of that stuff. And so like, if anybody's ever edited body worn camera footage from a scene, it takes hours.
Just the redactions.
Yeah. The redactions of moving and all the people in the background, it would have been a nightmare.
Yeah, we have 10 days and it takes us about 5 hours per 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I get it. I personally wouldn't wear one because I cuss too much. I like there's stuff on there that my grandma doesn't ever need to hear. So I get that. Well, we're at time. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Dustin, for being willing to share this with us. This is reaffirming that the work that we do is worthy and valuable, and to see somebody like you that live that experience and can talk about it and share it with others is only makes us better as an industry. So we really appreciate it. Everybody that's watching, we'll be back again next month. The hope is to bring in some people from the TAMIO community that responded to the Kerrville activation, and we're involved with that. So come up for that. And this webinar will be posted on the TAMIO website in the coming days, and you can leave feedback there as well. And then don't forget, submit your presentations for the 2026 conference, because it's going to be amazing, and in Austin, and in June in 2026. So more information coming soon on that. So thanks again, Dustin. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.